to Final Thoughts. Today's topic is a bit of a hot button issue: prejudice plus power, and can black people be racist?
Black people can't be racist. Prejudice, yes, but not racist. Racism describes a system of disadvantage based on race. Black people can't be racist since we don't stand to benefit from such a system.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, I think, and actually, I can make this really easy. Black people don't have the power to be racist. We don't have the power to oppress the other race, and that's all there is. I don't have to say anything else.
I also agree, and I was going to bring up the fact that power is important in racism. Like, without power, we can't really have racism, because that's, like, it's a system. And blacks are systematically on the bottom. Like, we 100% are on the bottom. You take any poll, you take any study, we're on the bottom of employment, of pretty much anything. So, can blacks be racist? You can't, because there's nothing that a black person can do as a member of the bottom of this system, of this hierarchy, that can make another race become that bottom. Like, it's there's no ladder that we can climb by doing racist things to make somebody else go towards the bottom. So we can't be a racist actor. So I agree, we can be prejudiced, we can be bigots. I can say I hate every Asian, every white person, every Mexican in the world. I can say that, but none of that is making their social status become lower than what it is.
Prejudice plus power. What does it equal?
I don't know. You tell me. You tell me.
This is very a very touchy subject, very sensitive for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I see why. I get it. But if I'm being honest, I don't really care for the entire prejudice plus power equation, the whole narrative. Like, it doesn't make sense in any stretch of it, you know. I get the need for black people to want to be, I guess, above something, right? We don't have the ability to partake in this nefarious behavior. But we have to be honest with each other, right? We have to be clear, we have to be fair, and we have to be consistent. But that said, like, the idea that black people can't be racist is absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely ridiculous. Usually when people say that, they're usually talking about a single definition of the word racism, right? And we tend to forget that words have different meanings and different definitions. There can be multiple definitions to a single word, right? As far as racism goes, there are multiple definitions to this word. It can mean systematic oppression. It can also mean interpersonal. It can also mean the outcomes of systems, right? It can mean it can be an implicit bias or an explicit bias, right? Racism takes different forms. So when we try to codify it into such a narrow definition, and when we say black people can't be racist, what people are generally saying that black people can't participate in systematic racism because we lack power, right? And I get that, right? Even though even that is incorrect, but I understand the sentiment. But when we take it further than that, we dislodge or discount interpersonal racism. We call it prejudice or whatever. If a black person smashes a bottle over a white person's head, and he does it because he's a white person, what do we call that?
A hate crime. Violence.
It's definitely a hate crime.
Black on white violence.
But people would be hesitant to call that an act of racism, right?
Yeah.
Because that black person can't participate in the system of power, systematic oppression. but that completely discounts interpersonal racism. You understand? Racism is all of these things. It's a system. It's interpersonal. It's explicit bias, implicit bias. It's the thoughts in your mind before you even perform a racist act.
Belief.
It's a belief at its core, right? So before you even get to the system, you have to have the idea before the system even occurs. So in a lot of these discussions, this is discounted, and it really drives me crazy because it helps push the narrative that black people can't be racist in any aspect. And that's just simply not true.
Yeah, I kind of don't. I kind of don't understand it in a sense that when you give examples like much of what was given in the video, can a black person be racist towards an Asian? You know, there are terms that you can use that's derogatory towards Asians. You could say, I hate all Asians because they're Asians and anything like that. And that person isn't considered racist because they're black, because they can't oppress the other person, right? The other race, or however you want to look at that. And I call bullshit because yes, that person is engaging in a racist act. They are verbally telling this person or physically doing something to this person on the basis of race. And when we get to the prejudice plus power equation, it simply doesn't make any sense. So why is something that like prejudice considered a considered a child term in regards to racism? Because it's the child term could never be the parent and vice versa, right? So prejudice is a blanket term. You can be prejudiced towards anything, race,
Anything.
stature,
Nose size.
yeah, tall, big,
Bow-legged.
yeah. You could be prejudiced towards anything. It's really just the tree. And then you get to several branches. You can be prejudiced in regards to race. You could be prejudiced in regards to sex. You could be prejudiced in regards to anything. You know what I'm saying? You see how those branches are starting to spread out?
And some of these branches have names.
Yeah. So when you're prejudiced in regards to sex, what do we call that?
In regards to sex. What, you're sexist?
Yeah.
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 When you're
It's called
prejudiced
sexism.
in regards to someone's Jewish heritage. What do we call that?
Yeah. What do
An
we call that?
anti-Semite, right?
Yep. That's what we say.
Right? So when you're prejudiced against someone in regards to their race, what do we call that?
If they're black, they can't.
You're right.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know what we call it.
Yeah.
Somebody said racism.
Yeah.
But I've been wrong before. Maybe we're wrong now.
Clearly, according to the video, we're wrong too. Which is interesting because we have, I guess, the same definition of what racism is. And in the video, it's a group of people. And it's clearly a great divide between those who think racism is a system and those who think racism is, well, racism. I think what your boy said, it was like a preconceived notion about somebody, whether it's negative or positive. And,
Yes.
something like that. To me, it's like a belief of inferiority or superiority in regards to race. And it's a belief. It has to start somewhere. Like you said, before you could get to the system, you have to have that belief. The thing with system, a system of racism is that, yeah, that does exist. We're not saying it doesn't.
Definitely.
The point of it all is that white people do have power. Therefore, they can act on their racism and create a system, right? So, what do we call a system of racism?
We call it America.
Good one.
I think the main thing
We call it
that
Trump super fans. Yeah.
you're not wrong either.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that people miss when talking about systematic racism is that a system of racism, when it works well, doesn't care what skin color you are. You play into the system regardless. So that black police officer, as much as he may be pro-black, if he's working within a police station that oppresses black people, you are now a part of this racist system. It doesn't care that you're black. If there's a black mayor who gets elected to a system that is perpetually designed to oppress people of color, guess what you are a part of now? A racist system. The racist system does not care if you're black, white, Spanish, Chinese. It doesn't matter. A racist system that works well, you could be as black as you want to be. If you're not changing the system, you're a part of the racist system. And that's why it works so well. But as you were saying, the definitions, we're not even saying that a system of racism doesn't exist. That's not the argument.
Yeah,
it
does.
What we're saying is that it's unfair and dishonest to discount other forms of racism. It doesn't work that way. You don't get to say that interpersonal racism doesn't exist. Just like somebody saying that interpersonal sexism doesn't exist. You don't get to say that.
Yeah, it's not rooted in reality.
No, it's not true. It can't work like that. You know? But
Yeah. I mean, even when you give people who hold this idea of prejudice plus power, when you give them a scenario where black people are in power, they still have an issue with calling black people racist. And to me, there's something wrong with that picture there. If I can think of a scenario to give you where we're in power, black people are in power, and you still can't say that, all right, so this white person is in Africa, and like the video said, and the president's black and everything like that. And they're treating that white person terribly on the basis of race. Yeah. Are they racist? And people had to stop and think, and I'm just like, what is there to think about that? I mean, come on. They are literally discriminating and being prejudiced towards this person because of their race. Yeah. Why do we need to go further than that?
The amount of mental gymnastics that people have to do to justify this is insane to me. So we're gonna call it everything else but racism, right? We're gonna call it prejudice. We're gonna call it xenophobia, right? We're gonna call it anti-blackness or whatever. Like you like this.
Why do you have to do that?
It can be all of these things. You understand? It can be all of these things, but it also is racist. Yeah. You understand? I can be prejudiced against someone.
They can be juxtaposed to each other.
I can be, at the same time, my prejudice can be on the basis of their race. So that makes me racist. I'm both prejudiced and racist, right? They are the same thing. Now, once I put that to action, I've now become discriminatory. So now I've crossed 3 thresholds at this point in time. I've become prejudiced on the basis of race, and I'm discriminating. So I'm all 3 of these things. These things don't have to exist in a vacuum away from each other. You can be everything. I can be anti-black and a racist. It's possible, yes. So we don't have to limit our thinking to where, we have to fit inside this bubble. The world doesn't work that way. It's not that simple. And it drives me crazy when I see people trying to justify it and say, you're a black person, you can't be racist, but you can be prejudiced.
You can be rude.
I can be rude, I can be bigoted. I can be prejudiced, right? I can be prejudiced on the basis of what? Race?
Go ahead. Yeah.
You know what they call that? You know what they call that when you're prejudiced on the basis of race? What do they call that? What's the definition of that?
I think it's considered racism.
I think it is considered racism. I literally think it's called racism when you're prejudiced on the basis. So when people say you can be prejudiced, the first thing I ask them is prejudice on the basis of what?
Yeah.
Of race.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh. So what's the definition of that?
Right.
Fucking racism.
Because, like, if you tried to ask them the same thing, like, okay, I'm prejudiced, all right? So let's just say we have I just walk up to you, be like, hey, I'm prejudiced, and you're like, prejudice in regards to what? Sex.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So, what do you call that?
It'd probably be a sexist, right?
Yeah, I would think so, right? But being that, what if I were a woman and I said, hey, I'm prejudiced. The same conversation. Prejudice in regards to what?
What?
Sex. Okay. So what do you call that? Just being prejudiced. Because she's a woman, she can't be sexist, right? Because she doesn't have power to oppress men.
Right.
You see how if you flinched a little bit and was just like, or even if you think that no, that's not the same, you're actually wrong because it is the same. And if you flinched and thought it was wrong, it's because you think that we're right. Our premise is correct because the equation doesn't work.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense for you to do the gymnastics required to even make it work. You force it.
It is not to be a jerk about anything. It's just, I think we both feel like we need to be absolutely honest.
Yeah. I think it's important.
Something like this, right? It's not fair to go about saying that black people can't be racist because I'm thinking about the next generation growing up under us who truly believes that, I can't be racist regardless of what I do. So I could just kick an Asian person because he's Asian.
You're just being rude or violent.
Yeah, and not be called racist.
Yeah. And once interrogated, why did you do it? Because they were Asian.
Yeah. That doesn't make me racist, though. Like, you don't see...
Because he can't oppress the Asian person.
You don't see the problem in that? You don't see the trail that you're leaving behind you in that, how this is problematic. And it's important that we're able to call each other out on our BS. It's so important because a white person can't say this. We watched pretty much the whole video.
They were walking on eggshells.
And the white people were just like, well, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And
I can watch people be racist.
But I can't put this. Oh, Lord, you wild. No.
I can watch black people say things, but they aren't racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it's important for people who are here, us, to push truth and to say what is honest. We can't go about believing this. We can't espouse this. This isn't healthy for us. Like literally for us people, it's not healthy for us to go around saying and believing we cannot be racist.
There's no benefit to it.
There's no benefit to it at all.
My final thoughts is take the equation and plug it into other social concepts like, sexism, homophobia, people are prejudiced towards homosexuals. So, like, take the prejudice plus power aspect and see if that equation works in those scenarios. Like, prejudice plus power isn't exclusive to racism. You know what I'm saying? So when you give us that equation, I don't get the same thing beyond the equal sign, if that makes sense. It doesn't automatically just equal racism. Prejudice plus power equals systemic racism. That's or a systemic whatever,
Anything.
Yeah.
Sexism.
Because you have the power so you can create a system based on your prejudice. That's it. That's just how that shit works. I don't know why we gotta do X, Y, Z, hoops and flips and all that kind of stuff. But that's my final take. Just take it and use that equation and plug it into other social concepts that we have. So that's it for me.